welcome to another episode of Similarly Different. You might see that the setup has been changing a little bit or trying to figure it out, but I wanted to have just this one-on-one moment with you guys because I actually wasn't going to record today. I was, and then I wasn't, and then I started talking to my producer about, something that was on my mind, and she was like, do you want to just step in and record? And I was like, I guess let's share it with everyone. So by the time that this episode comes out, I don't know how long this has been, but I recently, this past weekend, went to a family reunion. Now, I come from a really big family. I was born in Venezuela, and I actually have the stats of the amount of family members that we currently have. So this is from my grandfather and my grandmother. They had 16 kids, 15 that were alive, one passed away when she was 3 years old. Then they had 38 grandkids. Well, they had 38 kids, which made them grandkids, which is where I fall in. Then those grandkids had 56 great grandkids, and those great grandkids have now had 14 great grandkids, and it is a total of 126 family members. And then you add to that 44 wives, ex-wives, husbands, ex-husbands, and wives of grandkids, great grandkids would be a total of 170. But right now we have lost so far 14 family members in death, and now that leaves us to 156 family members. It's crazy. So my family has lived in Florida. For the most part, everybody lived in Venezuela, but in the last, I want to say like 6-7 years, I had a cousin move to Chicago. I had his sister move to Miami. I had a few cousins move to Miami. And then when things got really, really bad in Venezuela, a few of my aunts and uncles were able to get sponsorship, which is where we claim them. And we are legally bind to them for, I believe, as a year. And they're able to come here and get a green card to be able to work. And those family members have moved to Dallas, Texas. And then I've had other family members that are in Chile, Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela still. And it's just crazy to know that I have that many family members all over the world. But at the same time, it's all I've known. And I say that because when it came around to this reunion, I wasn't nervous. My aunt called me, I remember, and I was sitting on my couch and she called me and she was like, hey, Yanina, I really want to do this family reunion. I had this idea. I wanted to see if I could have your support on it and if I could confirm that you would make time to come. Now, just to backtrack, there was another family reunion where my grandma was alive. My grandma passed away during the pandemic, and it was for, I want to say it was like her 85th or 89th birthday, something along the lines of that. It was her 80-something. And I wasn't able to go. I had just moved to LA. I was in a relationship. There was so much going on in our business, and I just wasn't able to go. But my mom and my sister went. And that one was in Venezuela. But now, because this one would be in Dallas, it would be a lot smaller. Only the people in the US that could come. And we would Zoom with everyone else that was around the world. So, I've been talking to my aunt since she's been living in Dallas, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make it a priority. I'm gonna do it. And the moment I could, I instantly bought the tickets. I called my mom, I called my sister, and I was like, we really should do this. And I went ahead and got the family together, and we were set to go. So right before the trip, I had a few family members now tell me that they were nervous about it. I know my mom hadn't seen her sisters and brothers in a really long time. And just like every big or small family, there's problems in every family. There's no family that is perfect. So obviously she had her either preconceived notions, just like everyone else did, and as well as maybe fears or anxieties of you never know what setting or what vibe you're going to walk into and what energy everybody's going to have, Especially with such a big group of people. It ended up being, I believe, like 24 people in this reunion. So on my end, I was going more with the excitement to see my aunt, my uncles, a few cousins, and honestly just detach for a second and disconnect. So I didn't really have like anxiety. It was more, I knew that certain family members, more on the cousin side, had this idea of Hollywood Yanina, or, you know, Yanina that's always working, Yanina that's always doing this fabulous thing or this fame. And I was just like, you know what? I really want to take a carry-on and just be. And I don't want to be pretentious. I don't want to pretend. I don't want to overcompensate. I just want to be. So I went, and when I tell you, it was a consensus answer that it was the most healing trip. Now, what I mean by that is that I think that everybody has had their own, like I said, preconceived notions, things that they were going into it with, wondering, questioning. And I can obviously only speak for myself and for the two people that I had deep conversations about this, but I just felt like I finally was home. And what I mean by that is that I don't know, and I hate to compare myself to this because it's no way in a disrespectful way that I mean it, but I don't know if anybody's going to relate to this sentiment. I don't know if it's an immigrant thing. I don't know if it's a thing of, you know, being raised with other people rather than your immediate mom and dad. I don't know where this feeling comes from, but growing up, ever since I grew up in Venezuela and then I moved to the US, I felt like I was taken from my home. And it sounds so dramatic when I say it out loud, but I think that my morals, my values, my feelings, and my surroundings became such a core thing for me of my identity that when I moved to the US, even though I know my mom did it for a better life for me, for better opportunity, it was out of the comfort zone. And I went from being loved so intensely to just having to grow up fast, having to see the world in a different way, that there was this big hole in my heart for so many years. And friendships couldn't fill it. I constantly have been feeling like friendships come and go. People will change up on you. People would, you know, be your friend. It depends, and all this stuff. And when people would always be like, no, but family is family. Family's never going to leave you. I would always be like, okay, maybe your family, but you know, my family's in Venezuela and doesn't really care about me, or I don't have a good relationship with my mom and it's trial and error like at home. So I could never relate. And I just yearned for a feeling of home so intensely. And, you know, I became really independent growing up, and I was never one to be necessarily super promiscuous or lean on that with the opposite sex, but I would lean on it emotionally. So I would have guy friends, or I would date guys, and they would become my safetiness in the sense of connection emotionally, not necessarily like on the physical side. Like I could be friends with a guy for months and I never understood why it became such a safe space for me. The same thing goes for me always really looking up to, and it's so crazy because I'm literally digesting this as I am kind of like blurring it out to you guys. So I remember that growing up and until the last few years, I've always hung out with older people, and I always used to lean a lot on older women. So I would become friends with older women. I would love mentors. I would all this stuff. But I never saw them as a mom. I would always see them as like a spiritual aunt, spiritual this, spiritual that. And if you grow up in church, you know that the pastors become your spiritual parents. So it was kind of like that way. And they would always disappoint me. And what I mean by disappoint me wasn't that I would expect them to be perfect, but a season would change, they would move, they would change jobs, and our relationship would die out. And I was always like, these people are making me feel so disposable. Like I thought we had a longer relationship. I thought we had like genuine appreciation for one another. And on my part, it's such a big weight that I would put on people without them knowing that I didn't even realize I was doing. And then I would wonder why it would affect me so much when that person was no longer in my life, when the person would move jobs or change businesses or start a new relationship and it no longer went with like our mutual friends, and why things would just shift. And there was this like continuous attachment and like ripped apart feeling that I would go through. And I remember I would talk to my therapist about it and I would be like, why am I going through this? And I always associated it to my relationship that was up and down with my mom. And I think this weekend I realized that the biggest thing I was yearning for wasn't a relationship with my mom. It was to feel like I had a family. And when I mean by family, I meant different women and men that loved me unconditionally. And I say that because there was one consistent comment at the end of the trip that was made to me by my aunts, by my uncles, by my cousins. And it was, Yanina, you are still such a loving, kind, and tender spirit. And I think that that was so healing for me. I think that I wanted that validation for so many years from anyone that I would come across, whether it be a friend, a teacher, a partner, my friend's parent, business partners. I would want it from my managers. I would want it from anybody that I could possibly get it from. And it never would hit. It always felt like if I voiced it to them how I was feeling, like it was forced, or it never would come because I would never voice it. Or if I did voice it and it didn't come, now I felt rejected. And I couldn't figure out, and I genuinely started thinking there must be something wrong with me. There must be something wrong with me that I'm so willing to give love and I'm not receiving it back from so many different people or to the level that I wanted. And that's not what was happening. What was happening was, I think, and mind you, I'm still early processing it and trying to digest everything because it was very healing for me. I think that for so many years, I yearned the authentic love of my family that they gave me since I was little. And because I was never able to go back to Venezuela, I grew up thinking that that idea was a fantasy, that it was a dream, that it was unreachable, that it was unattainable, and that I was always asking people for something that didn't exist, only to find out that it 1000% exists. It 1000% is real. It's just, I had to go back home. And I think that for some people, home is mom and dad. But for me, home was Venezuela. And in connecting with the 24 people that we were able to connect this weekend with, I literally felt back at home. And there was never anxiety in my heart. There was so much peace, to the point that I came back to LA and somebody was telling me like, how do you feel? Are you tired from this weekend? And I said, I feel so at peace and no one can take this away from me. And I don't know how else to explain it, but to know that everybody's definition of home in their soul is unique. And when you're able to identify and truly pinpoint that feeling of home again and be able to go to it, I think that's when true healing starts happening, because it started happening for me and I felt so full. I felt so loved in a way that like little me missed so much. I told myself I wasn't going to cry this season and here I go. But it's like a good cry, you know, like I feel like in season 1, I cried like remembering bad thoughts and being sad for younger me. But these tears are more like, I figured it out. I figured out what I was missing and I'm never letting that go again. And I think more than ever, my family is so united by any means. My family is very far from perfect, but in their imperfections, I love it. I love it. I love how we appreciated each other's time in this experience. If anybody ever tells you do a family reunion, I 1000% suggest for you to do it. And if it's not a family reunion, it's like they always say, go back to your motherland. You're going to really understand. And granted, I didn't go back to Venezuela. It's very, very dangerous there right now and very poor. But they brought Venezuela to me by being in Dallas, and it meant so much to me. I loved being able to see my mom with her sisters and her brothers. I loved everyone that had problems with each other being able to just put it aside and enjoy each other's company, enjoy each other's energy, enjoy each other's love, give love so openly and receive love so beautifully. And, you know, me and my cousins have been talking individually with one another, and we all just felt so much healing that we either didn't realize or have been yearning for that needed to be done. So this is going to be a short little episode, but, you know, Listen, I have talked about family things in season 1. I will continue to talk about experiences and things of that sort and just be honest with you. And this is kind of where I'm at today. And just like I've shared things that maybe haven't been the best in the past, I thought it was really important to share something so beautifully that I experienced this weekend. Just like I've shared things in the past, I feel like it's so important to share this enlightenment that I had and this experience and this journey, because I always say we're forever evolving humans and we're always on, a journey. There's no destination, but we're on a journey, and the journey that I'm currently in brought me to this experience, and I'm so grateful for it. And it was probably one of the most beautiful, heartwarming, healing things that I have experienced in a really long time. And it wasn't made with the intention of that. It made me realize how much I really needed it. And I think also as we get older, we're just like, what's going to happen? And I just want to end this episode by letting you know that if there's something pending in your heart, whether it be that you miss a feeling, that you miss a joy, or you feel like a part of you is missing, search for that part, not in people and not in experiences, but in the association that it was the original feeling. So for me, it was when I was in Venezuela, and I always thought, when I have my family, when I have my family, when I have my family, or, when I have a group of close friends. But in reality, it was just literally being with those people again that brought it all back. And I don't know what this entirely means for the future, but I think that there was a big part of me that was moving life, just hoping for the best and working hard and not really knowing if anyone truly knew me. And this past weekend just showed me that at minimum, there's 24 people in the world that see me, know me, and that I could literally do nothing, and they still see my heart, see how much I love, appreciate my love, and that's all I ever needed. So until next time, I hope you enjoyed this little episode of my insightfulness and how I was trying to be similarly curious about my mental on similarly different